Starting now. Okay, everyone. So thanks for everyone who's joined us this evening. So we've got a presentation and members of the project team here from all sort of different disciplines. We're going to run you through the proposals. Any questions that you have at any point, please feel free to use the Q&A box on the bottom of your screens. We will try and get through the whole entire presentation, and then at the end we will put the questions to the relevant members of the project team. Some of those questions inevitably do have a bit of overlap, so we'll try and sort of separate them into themes. But for sort of a brief idea of what we're going to discuss, we'll start with a bit about background about Barratt Homes. Then we look at the planning policy context. Then we're going to go into the master plan and the design. I know there's already been a lot of questions about the highways, and we'll be covering that as well. And then at the end, we'll be doing a Q&A. So I'll hand over to Sean now to talk about Barratt. Sean, I can't hear you. Can anyone else on the team hear Sean? No. Yeah, sure.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, apologies. I'll start my spiel all over again. Sorry about that, everyone. So hi everyone, welcome to our consultation event. I'm Sean Havis. I work as a planner at our Barratt David Wilson office in Guildford. I'm sure you're all aware of Barratt David Wilson, but just as a quick brief introduction, we are the nation's leading house builder. We build over 17,000 homes every year, and this year that included about 17,200, of which 3,000 of those were affordable homes. We pride ourselves on our homes and those that we build, both our Barratt and our David Wilson brands, and that's sort of shown in the accolades we've achieved. We have more NHBC Pride in the Job awards than any other major developer, and that's been that case for the past 17 years. Alongside that, we're quite proud of our 5-star house builder status. What that requires is 90% of our residents who have purchased a Barratt or David Wilson home have recommended us to a friend, so that's at least 90%, and we've achieved that for the past 12 years in a row, which is something no other major national developer has achieved, so we're quite proud of that accolade. Positive contributions to the communities we work in. So I'm sure you're aware or are possibly aware of some of our developments nearby that we've recently built. We've got one in Hassocks, in the southern side of mid-Sussex, and we've got one in Hayward Heath that we're still building. Got quite a long-standing commitment to these, and we focus on sort of providing a beneficial place for people to live in, and something that we pride ourselves on. Alongside that, what we do is a lot of sort of work with local charities and organisations. As you can see alongside here, we sponsor organisations such as football clubs and other local sports clubs, helping them out with kit, etc. Another thing that I think we'll touch on later on is sort of our keenness on sustainability and our involvement in trying to push the sustainable agenda. So we as a developer work quite closely alongside the RSPB, both for our show homes and promoting that to our residents, ensuring that we boost our gardens, provide better habitats for hedgehogs, for birds, for bats, for whatever wildlife and fauna and flora there is in that area. And we're quite keen to expand on that wherever we develop in. To give you a bit more of a basis on the sort of planning background and the proposals that we're offering, I'm going to hand you over to Philip Allen, who is our planning consultant for this job.
Thanks, Sean. Good evening all. My name's Philip Allen from Boyer. We are, as Sean says, the planning consultants that have been assisting Barrett's on this site and have been so for the last few years. As I'm sure many of you will be aware, the site is a proposed allocation for 200 homes within the council's site allocations plan, which has reached an advanced stage. We have been promoting the site for a number of years, and we know that the plan's main modifications has recently been published for consultation and only seek minor changes to the wording of the site allocation policy, the extent of which you can see on the slide in front of you. On this basis, it is clear that examining inspector is broadly happy with the plan and that there's now greater certainty that it will be adopted in the early part of next year. This means a significant amount of weight can be attached to the policies within the plan, which in our view establishes the principle of development at the site for 200 new homes. The plan also identifies that new development at our site will be expected to be delivered in the first 5 years of the plan period, so before 2026. And as such, we've been working closely with planning officers in bringing forward proposals slightly ahead of the formal adoption of the plan to ensure that this timescale can be met to enable the council to have a sufficient housing land supply during the entirety of the plan period. So that in a nutshell is the planning policy context as we see it. So I'll have rationale behind our proposals in more detail.
Hello everyone. So the proposal for the site is for 200 homes, and a mix of 1 and 2 bed apartments, both for private and for affordable homes, and 2, 3 and 4 bed homes for private and affordable uses. And 30% of the 200 will be affordable and for local people, with three dedicated units for wheelchair dwellings. And we believe that we've come up with a development that complements the character of the local area, and with beautiful tree-lined avenues looping into the site and around, and with well-designed homes and gardens. We've allowed large areas of the site to be green space, including an equipped area of play for children of the local community and for the future residents of. And it's our aim to preserve as many existing trees and hedgerows on the site and between the fields that we have as many as possible, both to screen the development from the existing residents and to create a network and to enhance the network of green corridors in their future layout. And we're also plan to be protecting and improving the natural habitat surrounding Felbridge Water to the south. If I go to the next slide. And this is the design of the layout that we have so far. It's an evolving document that's been through a number of iterations so far, and we've had two pre-application sessions with the council, with both planning officers and their urban design officer. So we have, as I said, it's an evolving and improving layout that we're working on. As it stands currently, the 200 homes are divided across the 3 fields of the site, with the main access that comes in, goes through the fields and loops around in the third field to the west, all with trees around them, and then forming a nice access, a continual loop, and out again. So what's really driven the design of the site so far is we're dividing it into 3 character areas. The first one, as you enter the site, is coloured pink. Over in the east, we're calling them Crawley cottages, and the central field we're calling treetop views. And then over to the west, the slightly larger field we're calling green lanes, and each one will have a different and distinct feel and building elevational style. So we have distinct and beautiful homes that will not feel homogeneous across the development. So over in the east in Crawley Cottages, the pink area, this first area as you enter the site, we have detached and semi-detached homes, mainly with side parking. So you start off with a smaller scale of built form, and then as you move down the tree-lined avenue to the central field, which we're calling treetop views, the scale of the building slightly increases. We have some 2.5-story dwellings, so that's a home with a room in the roof and a roof light or a dormer looking out, and that's to really capture and frame the views of the playing field to the north and to the trees to either side, the west and the east. There's slightly larger homes in that section, and then moving over onto the west, the green fields element. This is a slightly more intensely developed field where we have a range of different house types, all the way from, this is where our flats are, our 1 and 2 bed flats, our 2 and 3 bed semi-detached homes, and our 3 and 4 bed detached homes. And we have, if you can see the plan, we have a slightly different street pattern within each, a slightly curvier, more organic feel over in the pink and the blue character areas, and then the green lanes over on the west. It's a slightly more rectangular and formal development, suitable for an area with more homes. Within the centre of this area, I have our formal park open space, which is surrounded by our apartment blocks, and they're used to really frame that open space and form a focus of the character area, and also act as a real quality usable open space for the inhabitants of the flats who won't have their own private gardens, but they'll have a beautiful, well-managed open space with which to use. And the rest of the dwellings each have their own private garden. And as you can see from the layout, we've really tried hard to make sure that they're all usable and regular shapes for future residents to really enjoy. If we could flip to the next slide, here we are. So the design and the materials of the site, these are our traditional range of homes which we'll be building under our David Wilson banner, and these are, as I said, slightly more traditional style homes. And we've taken cues from the local area with how to differently elevate them with slightly different details to differentiate them between the different character areas. And we've chosen a red brick as the main palette to build from, with traditional door and window styles. With so they will be sash style windows with different amounts of glazing bars depending on the different type of home, slightly different styles depending on the different type of home as well, so they won't all be exactly the same and monotonous. And within the 3 different character areas, we have different accent materials to differentiate the character areas again. So within the first field that was pink on the previous plan, Crawley Cottages, we're using a tile hanging as the feature material. And then in the centre, treetop views, we have this is our red and a multi-red brick elevations, and we have a flat gauged arch heads, they're called, above the windows. That differentiates between the first field, where we have a nice curved brick arch over the windows, and then in the final character area, green lanes, that was the yellow one over in the west, we'll be using white weatherboarding to bring out feature plots and in key areas within the development. And that's on the bottom there is an illustration of what one of the homes will look like in each of the character areas, starting on the left, Crawley cottages in pink. To the left, that's the one with the tile hanging, and in the centre is the treetop views. That's the one with the grey roof and the chimney, and the roof light signifying it's one of our 2.5-storey homes. And then over on the right, that's an illustration of one of the apartment blocks, and I should say that's one of our affordable apartment blocks. And we've put this up here to show that we're committed to making sure that the affordable homes are indistinguishable from the private homes. They will look the same, and they will be pepper-potted within the development. We, as our commitment to having an equal site. We can go to the next slide, please. So what's driven the design of this of the layout has been the Building for a Healthy Life principles. These are a set of principles that guide good design, and it's backed up within national planning, the national planning policy framework, as a toolkit of 13 questions, 13 ambitions to help you design and fulfill a good quality layout using good quality and standard agreed urban design principles, like having perimeter blocks, which we've fulfilled within this design, having a permeable grid, so we don't have lots of dead ends, letting people flow in and out. And it works all the way down to having making sure we have convenient and usable bin and cycle storage for future residents. And I intend to have this, our layout assessed by a third-party independent design reviewer, and in this case they're called Design Southeast. They come and they assess, and they assess our layout, and they go through it and judge it against the Building for a Healthy Life criteria. And it is our aim to be accredited, and the Building for Life commendation, it's widely supported within the business as a good achievement and accolade to have, and that is used and explained at our sales when we come to sell the homes as well, to really explain that we are committed to good quality design right the way through to completion and sale to the future residents. And it's something that will it will be a development that will go on and be a successful place to live for a future healthy and happy community. So on the green space and landscaping, as I've said before, trees and hedgerows along the site will be retained and strengthened where possible, and also to screen the development from existing residents. A new play area will be provided. It's quite difficult to see on this plan, but it's in the northeastern edge of the central field, where the mouse is, and it's there so it can be conveniently accessed via a new link to the playing field, so existing residents will be able to feed into the development and use the facilities. We've built in a range of safe and usable pedestrianly permeable footpaths across the development, and both within the development and without the development. And we're linking on to the Worth Way, which is also known as National Cycle Route 21, a number of times, and we're linking into the bridle way that divides that western parcel in the central field. Protecting neighbourhoods, protecting neighbours' amenity. So, as I've previously said, the site comprises of 3 fields to the rear of existing properties along Crawley Down Road, Oak Farm Place, and the sports ground. And we're setting back the new homes from the boundary slightly, and we'll be reinforcing the edges with further planting, and to allow a slightly larger space for those back gardens along Crawley Down Road. onto transport and sustainability.
Thank you. Evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Whittingham from Motion. We're advising Barry David Wilson on transport and infrastructure. What I wanted to do is just talk to you this evening about three things. The proposed highway access from Crawley Down Road. Secondly, the traffic assessments that we've been making. And thirdly, the package of measures that we're proposing to improve and enhance the sustainability of the site. So starting with the proposed access, this has been designed in accordance with what's called Manual for Streets. It's guidelines for highway design for roads such as Crawley Down Road. And we've undertaken a safety audit to ensure that it's a safe and convenient access. And it is. That's been demonstrated through the audit process and has been accepted in principle by the Highway Authority. On the second point, I appreciate traffic is a big issue in the area, and we've analysed and we've looked at it in several ways in conjunction with West Sussex County Council. The first way is that the County Council has produced, you may know, has produced a strategic traffic model covering the Mid-Sussex area. And the purpose of that was to assess developments in the Mid-Sussex local plan. That included our site and other sites, so it looked at the combination of sites. And in the sort of language of planning policy, confirmed there is no severe impact on the junction, which is the test in planning terms. That approach has been through the local plan examination in public and has been found appropriate and reliable in terms of assessing the traffic in the area. But over and above that, we've done our own assessment, and that's been based on traffic counts. And I'm sure one of the questions is when. The answer is it was in mid-2019, so based on pre-COVID traffic levels. And again, we've looked at our site in combination with other sites, and particularly looking at the Fellbridge junction, so the Copthorne Road, A22 London Road junction. And again, we found that the effect of the development traffic is not significant in planning terms or operational terms. The third thing I mentioned was in terms of the package of measures that we're proposing. And these start really with discussions we've had with the local bus operator, Metro Bus, and we've agreed with them that we will contribute towards improving the infrastructure. So essentially putting in real-time information at bus stops, which is a known method of increasing use, because obviously people get much more information about when the bus is due. I'm sure you've seen those around. The second measure that we're proposing, as Roger has indicated, is that the site is in a very good location with the bridleway and the connection to Worth Way to be able to connect to the area, around the area for leisure purposes as well as other purposes for pedestrians and cyclists. And we want to work with particularly West Sussex and their rights of way officer to discuss any improvements we can make in terms of cutting back vegetation or improving signing, etc., to increase use. And then the final part of the package, and it's something that we are required to do as part of a planning application and documentation, but also it's a very useful way of encouraging sustainable travel, and that's through a travel plan. So we will be putting forward those measures and others in that travel plan, as I say, to encourage what's called active travel, which is pedestrians and cyclists, and really provide information to new residents about the options that are available for travel and promote the use of those options. So that's a brief roundup of the transport aspects. I'm sure we'll have questions and be pleased to answer them in due course. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. So we will start moving towards questions, but before we do, just to say I know many of you already reached out already, but we are still collecting feedback, and we will be for next till next Sunday. So please do get in touch via any of the methods of contact. We also have a feedback form on the consultation website, which would be great for you to use. And obviously any sort of Q&As here, we will be gathering feedback as well here. So we'll start off. We've had quite a lot of questions already. I know a lot of residents have been asking their questions as the meeting's been going on as well. So I will try and make sure I get to everyone, but I'm going to start with some of the questions that have been asked sort of in the run-up, and there's been quite a few questions around trees, in particular the line of protected oak trees along the boundary of Sevenoak Farm, and some general questions about what existing trees will be retained, not only on the whole site but in particular along the west and north borders of the development. I was wondering if Sean, you're probably the best person to comment on that.
Yeah, happy to address that one. I hope you can all hear me still. For trees, we're seeking to retain as many trees along all boundaries as possible, whether that's along the north boundary and the western. We know they form quite a key part to the site, both protecting and screening existing residents and just as a lovely visual boundary to the site. In regard to Seven Oak Place?
So it says Oak Farm Place.
Sevenoak Farm Place. That tree is likely to be required to be removed. It's currently being reviewed by our engineers, and we'll be able to confirm that once we've got a more detailed site layout. But we will be looking to input additional screening and supplementary planting to assist with that. But it will only be the one tree that will be removed. The remainder of those trees along that boundary are due to be retained.
And sort of as a backup one to that, and there's a question on biodiversity net gain, and what the ambition was in regard to that.
Yeah, so going from that, we seek as a developer to provide biodiversity net gain on all of our developments, and we'll stick with whatever is in current policy, both local and national. So for this, we'll seek to deliver a biodiversity net gain. We'll normally incorporate that through a mix of sustainability measures, and they're sort of site dependent, depending on what flora, fauna, and general site characteristics there are. But our predominant ones are hedgehog highways, so gaps between dwellings and fences to allow hedgehogs to basically move freely, bird boxes, bat boxes, log piles, etc. Anything to try and boost the fauna and flora in this area. And we've got quite a good opportunity on this site with Felbridge Water lying along the southern edge to try and improve biodiversity in this area.
Then sort of moving on to, we had a few questions on the sort of environment and energy. Someone's asked what sustainability measures will be included in your proposals and how the homes will be heated, including can we confirm there will be no gas boilers as well? If Sean or Roger would like to jump in on this one.
Yeah, happy to try and address that. Our homes are generally, they're built to a very high standard, so sustainability is put at the forefront. So they'll always come standard double glazing, insulation, both in the roof and walls. So they stay warm, and generally bills are much lower in new build houses than they are in traditional older houses. In regard to the gas boilers question, they'll be built to the latest building regulations. So that will depend on when we start construction. So there may be some gas boilers, but there is definitely a national shift towards electric being the predominant provider in homes, and there is a shift to getting rid of those gas boilers and it all being electric. But that will be dependent on if construction starts. But it will be built to the latest building regulations at that time. It's worth noting that when we do submit a planning application, there will be a sustainability statement accompanied with it. This is one of Mid-Sussex validation criteria, and it will detail energy efficiency of homes, so what sort of fabric improvements we'll be putting in, whether that's sort of enhanced insulation, through to whether there's any renewables such as PV panels, and we'll also touch on other elements such as biodiversity, as I've mentioned previously, and also EV car charging points, etc. It will touch on those elements as well.
So I've got quite a number of questions on the highways, traffic, and access kind of elements of the proposal. So I'm going to try and make sure that I've got everything. There are quite a lot of comments in the Q&A box. So I will try and capture everyone's. But some of the questions we received earlier. So what is to stop drivers turning down the bridleway to access Crawley Down Road? Was one of the first questions we received.
Yeah, no, good question. The answer is that, as you will know at the moment, it's a bridleway, so only able to be used by pedestrians, horses and cyclists, and there is no proposal to change that in any way. So it's not going to be used by vehicles. The way that will be secured, as well as the fact that it's illegal to do so, is that where the main road, if you like, running through the development crosses the bridleway, it will be physically impossible to turn from that road into the bridleway. You'll appreciate it's effectively a 45-degree turn, and there simply won't be the width to do that. We have been very conscious of making sure that the crossing of the bridleway across the road is safe for everybody, and that involves making sure that there's appropriate visibility and the surface texture, etc., and the speed of vehicles to make sure that there isn't a safety issue at all in terms of the users of the bridleway.
And a few people have asked for some more detail around the proposed bus lane on the A22. Is there anything you could add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just to repeat what I said earlier, that our approach is to contribute to that. It's a scheme that has been designed and developed by West Sussex County Council over a number of years, you may appreciate. And there's been various sort of iterations of that. It may well be that there isn't a final design as yet, but the general principle is that there would be a bus priority lane southbound along London Road going towards East Grinstead, built within sort of highway land and giving the usual bus priorities. I think there's a little bit of design still to go in terms of how it approaches junctions en route, etc. But as I say, that's being progressed by West Sussex County Council, and the intention is that the applicant here, Barry David Wilson, would contribute towards it, because we do think it's important to ensure that buses have as much priority as they can going towards East Grinstead.
And we've also had a few questions asking about the sort of traffic assessments that are being conducted. Obviously, you already said that these were taken in the pre-pandemic era. Is there any more detail we have around sort of when those were conducted, or?
Yeah, they were conducted. It was June 2019. So well before we'd ever heard of COVID and pandemics in this regard. Right from the start, quite a long way before that, early discussions with West Sussex County Council and indeed Surrey County Council, because they're close to the border of Felbridge Junction. We were very involved in detailed discussions with them to make sure that we'd got the right traffic assumptions, both for our site and for others. The junction was modelled in the correct way, and they were happy with the general process. And we spent a lot of time discussing that, as I say, with them, going backwards and forwards, and quite rightly so, because we know that, particularly at peak hours, it can be a relatively congested junction. And so we wanted to analyse the effect of this development carefully on that junction and indeed other junctions along Copthorne Road.
Thank you very much. I think most of the questions on the highs covered there. Obviously, feel free to put some more in if there's anything that I've missed. But in terms, we've had quite a couple of questions on the design, in particular. I think the height of the proposed buildings. I don't know if there's one for you, Roger. I think we've had questions relating to the height of both the homes and the proposed apartments as well.
Sure. The majority of the homes will be 2-storey, and then in the central field we have a number of 2.5-storey ones, and then over on the far western field, that's where we have both 2-storey homes, 2.5-storey homes, and the apartments, which will be 3 stories.
And those and the 3-storey ones, they're towards the south of the.
The 3-storey flats are within the western field, and they're within the centre of the parcel, around the small park that we're creating. So they're away from the existing residents of Crawley Down Road.
What we've just covering that show, what we've sought to do is ensure that the dwellings which are close to the boundaries are 2-storey in height, just to protect existing residents overlooking, so we ensure that all the 3-storey dwellings are located effectively in the centre of the site or away from existing residents. We tend to do that to ensure that we've got suitable back gardens backing onto existing residents, and then lower height dwellings to ensure there's no impact of overlooking and privacy is retained, as we appreciate many of those residents have had privacy for many years. Just want to retain that where possible.
Thanks, Sean. We've had one question on flooding, and just this whether the site is likely to flood at any point in the future. Is it Sean or Phil who would like to jump in that one?
I'm happy to just jump into that, Phil, if that's all right.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, we're obviously aware that whenever there's a watercourse near a development, it's a very good question. Whenever there's a watercourse near a development, there is a chance of flooding. So what we've used is EA have flooding maps, which basically show impact of potential flooding, and it's split into flood zones sort of 1, 2, and 3, depending on the likelihood of flooding, and that's based on existing data of levels, previous flood risk, etc. So we're currently basing our layout on that, but alongside that, we're undertaking detailed flood modelling. So this will effectively detail exactly what the flooding extents are, and what it often details is sort of it not only details current flooding, but also predicts it for the future. So taking into account climate change, etc. And we'll be working closely with the Environment Agency, West Sussex and Surrey County Council, and also Mid Sussex District Council, to agree those flooding extents and ensure that our homes are basically safe into perpetuity.
Thank you. We've had a specific question about the, I think a couple of times, on will the proposed development require the acquisition of number 7 Oak Farm Place? I think Sean, again, I think best placed on this one.
Yeah, it's a very good question again. I can outright say no, the development will not require the acquisition of any part of number 7 Oak Farm Place at all.
And then, yes, relating to the master plan, the path, I'm actually going to bring it up just so everyone knows what we're talking about. This path here, what is this path going to be used for?
That path is a pedestrian and cycle path, but it will also we also intend to be able to be used as an emergency access link for emergency service vehicles in case there is a blockage on the highway within the development.
Thank you very much, Roger. What are the minimum distances between the boundary of the site and the new homes? So how far sort of set back will the new homes be from the sort of boundary onto the existing houses as well?
The layout isn't fully completed yet, but we're currently looking at an offset from over on the western field in Crawley Down Road of 15 meters from the rear of the new homes to the boundary. But we have one home that sides on, and that's currently running at about 4 meters, but the design can slightly change. They won't be getting closer. And then over in the first parcel, we're looking at an offset of about 5 meters, for each property that sides on to the boundary there.
Thank you. So we'll so there's a sort of question about the management of both the green spaces on the site as well as the trees, as well as what is the intention in terms of who will manage those green spaces going forward.
Yeah, I'm happy to respond to that. So obviously on all our developments, this is quite a key consideration that we have to take into account. We obviously, once you've got trees, and if you're installing planting, you want it to last. So it will be with discussions with Mid Sussex District Council, but it will likely be managed by themselves, the council, or it will be managed by a residents management company that is appointed by ourselves and then run by the residents. And they will manage it in accordance with a landscape management plan, which is normally submitted pursuant to conditions attached to the planning permission. So that will detail exactly what management is required to both the trees, the hedges, and any supplemental further planting that's put in by ourselves.
Thank you. So there's been a couple of questions on the local services, in particular GP places. Is it, I think Sean maybe best place again, or is it Phil? What sort of has an assessment been undertaken on the number of GP places available for residents at this development?
Shall I take? Yep. No, so as I mentioned at the beginning, the site is come through the local plan process as a proposed allocation. So as part of the evidence gathering exercise that the council undertakes, is they look at all the infrastructure requirements of the site and all the other proposed allocations in the district, and capture all the additional requirements that new development will generate through an infrastructure development plan, which is then implemented through contributions by all the individual developments. So in effect, the ballot scheme will make a proportionate contribution to the new infrastructure requirements arising from new development on our site. Was you aware that we are close to the administrative boundary of Surrey County Council, and Felbridge falls predominantly within Surrey? Throughout the plan making process, the District Council agreed statement of common ground with Surrey County Council in terms of highways and education, in terms of what the additional requirements would be arising from our development. And again, they were satisfied that a financial contribution from our development will be sufficient to proportionally increase the need caused by our development at the local schools and other infrastructure requirements such as doctors.
Thank you. In terms of the construction, what is the envisaged timeline in terms of getting application in and getting spades in the ground? I think we've had a few questions on that.
So yeah, happy to answer this. It's all very indicative, subject to planning timeframes, etc. Idea currently is we're looking to submit in sort of January, February of next year, so 2022. It's then subject to planning discussion, arranging a Section 106 sort of a legal agreement to finalise it all. So it's tough to reckon, but I would estimate autumn, winter of 22 we'd be looking to start constructing at Felbridge.
And sort of in addition to that, will there be a construction management plan?
Yeah, great question. It's always something that comes up and is something that we know once we start developing on it. It's keen to ensure that we don't affect existing residents or minimise any effect that we have on existing residents. So yeah, we will be implementing what we call a construction environmental management plan. These are typically conditioned on almost all permissions, and they're quite a common theme across the country. And that will that'll be submitted as part of the planning permission and will effectively detail all elements around the construction of the development or any development. So that will include working hours, anything on noise, dust, goes so far as sort of wheel washing and where the location of those are and how often it's used, through to sort of a sweeper going through, etc. And they're very detailed documents which we have to adhere to once they're approved as part of that condition. And we can't stray away from those. So they're sort of our Bible on how we'll go about constructing.
Thanks very much, Sean. I had a couple of questions about the consultation, which I'll take myself. We've got one which said we'll be holding an in-person consultation event. The intention at the moment is not to hold in-person consultation events, whilst there is no formal legal restrictions stopping people from meeting. There are a number of people who are vulnerable, and these virtual consultation events reduce that risk. Furthermore, we've also found that actually that we have got a lot more outreach and demographic outreach, especially in terms of the number of people that visit our virtual consultations. Added to that, we are also able to record them, as we are doing now, and make them available for people that are unable to attend. So if you are aware of anybody who was unable to attend, then please feel free to get in touch and we'll be able to send them a recording. Similarly, they can also ask their questions after the consultation event has happened. There's also been a question about whether we've had any direct engagement with the sports club, which is adjacent to the site. We have sent a briefing to the sports club, and as part of this conversation, and we will be discussing with them further regarding sort of future linkages. I think that's sort of a lot of the a lot of questions. There are quite a lot coming in. I think there's been a couple more on highways. I'd like to sort of jump back into that one, if that's okay, Andrew. Do we know in terms of the assessments how many vehicle movements this development will create?
We do. We've looked at that very carefully, and the answer is that the 200 homes will generate about 100 movements in the peak hour. That's arrivals and departures. So obviously in the morning, more departures than arrivals, and vice versa in the evening. But it's important to recognise, of course, that that's not 100 vehicles or so going through the Felbridge junction. That clearly is an important direction. The people who want to go, obviously, to East Grinstead or northwards towards M25. But of course, people will go along Copthorne Road westwards towards the M23, etc. And also sort of turning left out of the site and down Crawley Down Road. So what I'm trying to say is we've looked at that traffic generation carefully. We've looked at the distribution of that traffic, and that's fed into the junction assessments we've made. And you remember what I said as well is that the county transport model has also taken very similar assumptions and looked at the immediate junctions and indeed the junctions around the county, the Mid-Sussex area in their transport modelling work. So hopefully that answers the question.
And then there's another question saying, will the access be via Leybourne Place? It's a cul-de-sac.
No, it's always been the case right from the start that it was agreed in principle that the access, an access from Crawley Down Road should be the main and only site access, and that's been sort of confirmed in many discussions, and that's our proposal, as you will have seen this evening.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm just going through now because there's also a lot of comments with some questions. In terms of the cycleway and pathway at the sort of the northern towards eastern part of the site, will there be any measures to stop motorbikes from using that path? I don't know who's best placed to pick that one up. Sean?
Is that the proposed?
Yeah. The proposed for the emergency access as well.
Yeah, so we'll typically we do it on quite a lot of our developments, is provide these sort of emergency links that basically where you've sort of got that single access one road through, there's always nervousness that if there is a crash or an incident along that road, emergency vehicles, whether that's fire or ambulances, getting through. But also there's a consciousness that by you're providing these emergency links, you don't want them to be utilised by other vehicles. So what we often provide is effectively bollards. These bollards can be, they're sort of got, I think it's special codes or something that basically either drops them or means they can be taken off for ambulances, police cars, fire service, etc. So that they can still access and use it, but it won't be used by motorbikes, other vehicles, etc. During that time.
Cheers, Sean. I'm just going to start picking up the questions as and when I see them at this moment. How will the surface water drainage work? Will there be suds?
Yes, happy to come in on that one again. It's a very good question, and suds have definitely been at the forefront of the past sort of 10, 15 years in drainage solutions, that it's no longer becoming such a hard-lined, you have a big pond, it drains into there. It's much more sort of holistic approach and incorporated into development. So we do have an engineer on board. They will be designing detailed drainage drawings and they will be submitted as part of our application. So what you'll have is effectively a series of suds, so swales, basins, etc., which will then manage the surface water across the development. But that would be further details would be submitted as part of the application.
Thank you very much. We've also had a couple of questions on the affordable housing and where these will be situated in the development and how they will how they'll be delivered. Will they be for local residents, etc.? Is there someone who could expand on that? Roger?
I can explain about where they'll be situated. The affordable housing will be spread across the site in clusters of no more than 10 affordable homes together, as per the requirements of Mid Sussex Council.
Joe.
Oh, Sean, I think you're on mute.
Apologies. Was there a further question about sort of how they'll be provided? Was there? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. If yeah. So how they will be sort of provided. Will there be a local operator? Will there be,
Yeah. So what we intend to do is we stick to sort of the council's preferred mix of affordable. So they basically decide on a mix of which types of affordable homes are needed, whether they're 1, 2, or 3, 4-bed, etc. And then those homes are firstly offered to local people, and they'll be mixed. It'll be effectively 2 types or possibly 3 types of affordable homes, which are ranged between affordable rented, shared ownership, and a new government scheme called First Homes. The exact mix of that is to be confirmed as part of the application, and there will be ongoing dialogue with Mid Sussex on that.
Thank you very much. And I think we're getting towards the end of our questions. I can't seem to find many that we haven't covered, areas that we've gone into quite a bit of detail about. There's been a question in terms of will there be another opportunity for people to comment before you submit? People are welcome absolutely to carry on commenting and give all their feedback until the Sunday, 9th of December. That's when we will collate all of the feedback, and it will help to inform the final proposals, which will be submitted in January or February, depending. There's been a question about will there be a noise reduction system in place between the play area and existing residents? Is that something that anyone can pick up? Sure.
The play area is located with a specified and statutorily required offset from the existing dwellings and from the new dwellings as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Another question on sort of the consultation again, will there be a comment to a chance to comment on the revised plans? The revised plans will be the ones that are submitted, and then the council will be conducting their statutory consultation on those, not us. I think there was someone would like us to go into a bit more detail about flooding. What is the result of our sort of investigations into flooding on the site, and has been in terms of is there any more detail we can provide other than the site obviously being on flood zone 1?
Sadly, there's not much to provide at the moment. The drainage details are still being worked up. That's sadly all the information I can provide at the moment.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that will probably brings us to about an hour now, so I think we will wrap it up. If there are any more questions and comments, please feel free to get in contact on the consultation email address, which a number of you have already used. It's just there on your screen if you don't have it. Similarly, you can also give feedback by post, telephone. Yeah, please get in touch if you've got any more questions, and we will get back to you with answers. But thank you so much for everyone who's taken the time this evening to join us. We really appreciate it, and yeah, please do give us your comments and your feedback. Yeah, thanks very much to the project team as well for joining us this evening as well.